Dear students, myself Dr. Kamlesh Gakhar, Professor in Economics from Institute of Management Studies and Research, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Dear students, you must have studied microeconomics in your first year of graduation. Now, in this semester, you will study the other branch of economics, that is macroeconomics. In the first lecture, I will let you know about the nature and scope of macroeconomics. The objective of this lecture is to enable you to understand what is macroeconomics, which are the major theories of macroeconomics, distinction between microeconomics and macroeconomics. To achieve these objectives, we will discuss about various definitions of macroeconomics, scope of macroeconomics, difference between micro and macroeconomics, integration between micro and macroeconomics. All of you must have heard that inflation rate has increased or decreased. India is having the fastest rate of growth of GDP among the countries of the world. In 2008, the whole world experienced recession. People talk of unemployment. Sometimes RBI follows cheap monetary policy, sometimes it follows dear monetary policy. So, all these topics actually belong to the realm of macroeconomics. In today's scenario, you must have seen that value of dollar is rising continuously and value of rupee is declining continuously. So, all these are actually a part of macroeconomics. Until the 1930s, there was little need to distinguish between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Economists mainly focused on microeconomics. Macroeconomics was clearly the junior partner. It became important only when J.M. Keynes published his book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936. Relative neglect of macroeconomics ended as a consequence of the influence of Keynesian ideas. Now, we will discuss various definitions of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with the functioning of the economy as a whole. It is not related to the study of particular firms, prices, outputs, income and expenditure. According to R.J.D. Allen, the term macroeconomics applies to the study of relations between broad economic aggregates. We see here what is the relationship between total income, total employment and total expenditure. Other definitions of macroeconomics are like according to Culbertson, macroeconomics is the theory of income, employment, prices and money. According to Professor Boulding, macroeconomics is that part of economics which studies the overall averages and aggregates of the system. According to Lipsey and Crystal, macroeconomics is the study of how the economy behaves in broad outline without dwelling on much of its interesting but sometimes conferring details. According to Dornbusch and Fisher, macroeconomics is concerned with the behavior of the economy as a whole, with booms and recessions, the economy's total output of goods and services and the growth of output, the rate of inflation and unemployment, the balance of payments and exchange rates. According to Gardner-Ackley, macroeconomics is the study of forces or factors that determine the level of aggregate production, employment and prices in an economy and their rates of change over time. Thus, macroeconomics is actually the study of aggregates. It is concerned with aggregate demand, aggregate supply, aggregate savings, aggregate investment, total trade, etc. Now, what is the scope of macroeconomics, or what we are going to study in macroeconomics? Number one is theory of national income. In theory of national income, we study the different concepts of national income like gross domestic product at market price, gross domestic product at factor cost, gross national product, net national product, private income, personal income and disposable income. We also study what is the relationship between the various concepts of national income, how we can calculate national income at factor cost from the gross domestic product at market price, and how we can find out the gross national product from net national product. So, all these concepts of national income are related to each other. We also study in it methods of measurement of national income. We measure national income by three methods. They are product method, income method and expenditure method. We also see what is the difference between real income and nominal income. Now, another theory, which is the theory of general price level, that is also very important in macroeconomics. You must have experienced that sometimes prices go on rising continuously and sometimes they go on falling continuously. When prices go on rising continuously, we call it inflation, and when they go on falling, we call it deflation. In macroeconomics, we also study what are the causes and effects of inflation and deflation. What is the reason that prices are rising continuously? It is because of the increase in aggregate demand or because of the decrease in aggregate supply, and the inflation and deflation are having very adverse effects on the economy. So, that is why we have to control them. So, macroeconomics tells us how we can control inflation and deflation in the economy. So, dear students, till now we have discussed about the meaning of macroeconomics and definitions of macroeconomics given by various economists. Under the scope of macroeconomics, we are going to study about the different national income concepts in macroeconomics, their relationship among the different concepts and how the national income can be measured by the use of product method, income method and expenditure method. And we have also discussed that general price level determination is also the subject matter of macroeconomics. And you know that money is very important in any economy. You can't think of passing a day without the money. Since the morning till evening or even at night, we need money to buy goods and services. It affects demand, supply, prices, output and employment in the economy. Now, what is money? How it has evolved? What are the constituents of money? What are its main functions and how it can control various economic variables is also studied in macroeconomics. Various theories of money given by eminent economists and credit creation by commercial banks are also dealt in macroeconomics. Employment is a very important concept in macroeconomics. We should know what is unemployment. The person who is willing to work at the going wage rate, but he is not getting employment, that person is called unemployed. The persons who are willingly not doing any jobs, they are never called unemployed in economics. Now, what determines this employment is actually studied in macroeconomics. So, various determinants of employment like aggregate demand, aggregate supply, aggregate consumption, aggregate savings, aggregate investments and the concept and working of multiplier are also constituents of macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, we study classical theory, neoclassical theory and Keynesian theory of employment. Actually, it was the high unemployment of 1930s that led to the establishment of this subject, and unemployment is still a continuous concern of economics. Economic growth for every country is essential. Now, what is economic growth? Economic growth refers to an increase in per capita income of a country over a long period. Macroeconomists study the determinants of growth. In macroeconomics, we study why growth rates fluctuate across the countries or at different time periods in the same country. So, we have to see here how the monetary and fiscal policy can help in achieving a higher growth rate, and this is also the subject matter of macroeconomics. Monetary policy is related with the supply of money and cost of money, and fiscal policy is related to the government's expenditure and government's income. Both fiscal and monetary policy are used to achieve a high rate of economic growth. All of you must have seen that there are ups and downs in various economic activities. Sometimes the economy is in the upward swing and sometimes it is in the downward swing. The upward swing is the boom period. In boom period, national output, employment, income, demand and prices go on increasing continuously. During the depression, there is a continuous decline in demand, prices, output, employment and income in the economy. Macroeconomics studies the theory of business cycles. These theories tell us what are the causes of booms and recession in the economy, why the economy comes in the upward swing or why the downward swing starts in an economy has been beautifully explained in macroeconomics. We also see what are the effects that just as during boom we have the prosperity in the economy, but during depression employment is falling, incomes are falling. So, that is a very bad state of affairs. So, that is why there is a need to control business cycles. So, macroeconomics tells us how we can control these business cycles. In the era of globalization, no country can remain isolated. Every day you hear that our Prime Minister is going abroad to have better relations with other countries. We are exporting certain goods and services to other countries and importing goods and services from other countries. So, we are dependent upon other countries. So, macroeconomics tells us why do we trade with each other, why we do not want to become self reliant, what are the various types of tariffs and non-tariff barriers along with their rationale. That is also the subject matter of macroeconomics. So, till now we have talked upon what is the theory of money and how it is a part of macroeconomics, how macroeconomics helps us in understanding the forces or the factors determining the level of employment in the economy, how we can find out the rate of economic growth and how we can remove the obstacles in the way of economic growth, or what should be done to increase the rate of economic growth has also been discussed. We have seen that business cycles are common in every economy, booms and depressions, and macroeconomics tells us why do they arise, what are their effects and how they can be controlled. In macroeconomics, we have also to study about the theory of international trade. Now, we will discuss, is there any difference between micro and macroeconomics? You have studied microeconomics in your first year. Now, we have to see how macroeconomics is different from it. The difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics is primarily one of emphasis and exposition. Their distinction can be drawn on many bases. For example, on the basis of objectives, they are different from each other. Microeconomics explains how the relative prices are determined and how the resources are allocated among competing ends under full employment conditions, while macroeconomics is the study of fluctuations in the level of output, employment and general price level and of the ways of controlling such fluctuations. There is difference in the degree of aggregation. Under microeconomics, the unit of study is a part or a sector. It is concerned with the behavior of individual units, in particular consumers, firms, etc. The unit of study under macroeconomics is the whole economy. It studies aggregates like total savings, total investments, total consumption, total employment, etc. There is difference in the subject matter of both microeconomics and macroeconomics. In microeconomics, you have studied demand analysis, supply analysis, production analysis, cost analysis, price determination under different markets and factor pricing. On the other hand, in macroeconomics, we study about the determination of output, employment, income, general price level, economic growth, trade cycles and international trade. Paradoxes are explained only with the help of macroeconomics. They could not be explained by microeconomics. One thing which is good for one person, but if all person do the same thing, then the result is doubtful. For example, if one person starts saving more, he can be rich, he can accumulate wealth. But if all persons start saving more, then the result will be poverty. How? When all start saving more, this means they will be spending less in the economy. Aggregate demand will fall. With fall in aggregate demand, there will be fall in prices. Profits will fall, and due to decreased demand, entrepreneurs will produce less. There will be less employment and less income in the economy. So, it is called saving is a private virtue, but a public vice. Similarly, if one producer produces more of a commodity, he can earn more, but if all producers start producing more of the same commodity, the result is overproduction in the economy, and this overproduction leads to fall in prices, fall in profits, leading to fall in investments, output and income in the economy. So, it is macroeconomics which can explain these paradoxes. Micro and macro also differ on the basis of techniques of analysis. Partial equilibrium analysis along with assumptions is used to study the economic behavior of individual units in microeconomics. For example, you have studied the law of demand, which explains the relationship between price of a commodity and its quantity demanded, while other factors affecting demand are assumed to be constant. Other factors affecting demand are like consumers' income, price of the related goods, taste and preferences, expectations, population, all these factors to affect the demand, but in law of demand we assume that they remain constant, they are not going to change. In macroeconomics, general equilibrium is used to determine the level of output, employment and income. Different importance is given to price and income in microeconomics and macroeconomics. According to Professor G. Thema, in microeconomics, consumers, producers and factors of production take their decisions on the basis of price. You see that if you want to buy a commodity, you see what is the price of the commodity. As a producer, when you have to take a decision what to produce, again you see what are the prices of the commodities. Producer wants to have the highest profit. Similarly, he has to take decision regarding how to produce. So, again he will see the factor prices so that he can reduce the cost of production. For employment purpose, a factor will like to go to that sector where it gets the highest reward. So, here price is determining the decisions of consumers and producers. On the other hand, macroeconomics deals with the level of income. So, it is the income which determines aggregate consumption, aggregate savings and aggregate investments, etc. Consumption of any person is dependent upon his income. Similarly, savings and investment also depend upon income. There are some analytical differences also in micro and macroeconomics. The main difference between micro and macroeconomics is that microeconomics studies the behavior of economic variables in equilibrium position. We talk of equilibrium in microeconomics, whereas macroeconomics studies the behavior of economic aggregates in disequilibrium position. We see if aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, it leads to inflation in the economy. If aggregate demand is less than the aggregate supply, this leads to deflation in the economy. Differences exist on the basis of change also. Many economic units may have changed from micro point of view, but they may be unchanged from macro point of view. For example, the number of members of a family may have increased and number of members of some family may have fallen, but the total population may be the same. So, from the macroeconomic point of view, there is no difference, population is same, but from microeconomic point of view, there is a change. So, this is also a difference in microeconomics and macroeconomics. There is difference in the assumptions of micro and macro. There is assumption regarding national output. In microeconomics, the total output of an economy is given, while in macroeconomics it is variable. So far as the distribution of output, employment and total spending among particular goods and services is concerned, it is taken as given in microeconomics, but these are the variables in macroeconomics. We also see the difference regarding the importance given to price level. In microeconomics, general price level is taken as given, while relative prices or exchange rates among goods and services are taken as variable. In macroeconomics, relative prices are taken as given and general price level is a variable. Now, there is not only the difference in micro and macroeconomics, they are dependent upon each other. One branch is incomplete without the other branch. So, we have to see how the macroeconomics needs the use of tools and theories of microeconomics. Both approaches are essential. Micro and macroeconomics are complementary to each other, they are not competitive. Both are dependent upon each other. Macroeconomics has a foundation in microeconomics and microeconomics has a foundation in macroeconomic theory. Price of a commodity is influenced by the general price level. When a producer has to set the price of his commodity, he will definitely look at the general price level. If the prices are rising, he can keep the price of his commodity high, but if the prices are falling in the whole economy, then he cannot keep the price high. So, price level of one commodity depends upon the general price level. Similarly, the general price level depends upon the individual prices. In the words of Samuelson, in reality there is no opposition between micro and macroeconomics. Both are absolutely vital and you are only half educated if you understand the whole thing ignoring the other. So, dear students, in this lecture we have done definitions of macroeconomics, we have discussed the scope of macroeconomics covering various theories, we have seen what is the difference between micro and macroeconomics and their interrelationship. It is quite different from microeconomics, which is related to the economic activities of individual units in terms of their assumptions, objectives, analysis, etc. They are incomplete without each other. So, both micro and macroeconomics are essential for having a complete knowledge of economics. I hope you must have understood what I have told you in this lecture. In the next lecture, we will discuss about the significance and limitations of macroeconomics. Thank you.